I was homeless. While my parents bought my brother a second house, now they're begging me for a place to stay. I used to dream about warmth. Not riches, not fame, just warmth. A bed that didn't creak under the weight of my exhaustion. A roof that didn't leak icy rain onto my skin as I curled into myself for comfort. When you've spent enough nights on a park bench, or curled in the back seat of a car that barely runs, the idea of warmth becomes less of a luxury and more of an obsession. I craved it like a dying man craves air, and all the while, my brother slept soundly in a house bought with the same money that could have saved me. It wasn't a surprise, not really. I grew up knowing my place. Darren was the golden son, the prodigy, the one whose name was spoken with pride at dinner parties while mine barely left my parents' lips. He was showered with everything: a private education, a brand new car on his 16th birthday, a full ride through college without lifting a single finger to earn it. And when he graduated, they handed him a check for a down payment on his first house, a charming 3-bedroom suburban dream. Meanwhile, I got a bus pass and a reminder to work hard because nothing in life comes for free. Even that wasn't the worst of it, because years later, after I clawed my way through life with bloody hands and relentless willpower, after I built something for myself with no help, no handouts, nothing but sheer defiance, they came knocking. They weren't here to congratulate me. They weren't here because they finally saw me as anything more than an afterthought. They were here because they had lost everything. The knock at the door came late, past the hour when I normally received visitors, and the weight of it sent an immediate, unwanted chill down my spine. There was something about it. Hesitant, desperate. A rhythm that was unfamiliar but eerily telling. I knew before I even opened it. And yet, when I swung the door wide and saw them standing there, my father looking thinner than I had ever seen him, my mother clutching the strap of her worn-out purse like it held the last of their dignity, I still had to swallow back a bitter laugh. "Well," I said, leaning against the frame, arms crossed, "this is a surprise." Their eyes darted past me, sweeping over the pristine interior of my home, the one I worked my hands raw to afford. I knew what they saw: the polished hardwood floors, the sleek furniture, the undeniable proof that I had made something of myself despite them. My mother's lips parted slightly, and for a brief second I saw the flicker of something. Was it shame? Regret? Or just the horror of realizing that the child they discarded was now the only one with something to offer? I let the silence stretch, waiting. They were the ones who had come to me. Let them speak first. My father cleared his throat, his voice hoarse. "We need to talk." I cocked an eyebrow. "Do we?" My mother stepped forward then, her expression pinched, as if the weight of this moment was finally pressing down on her. "Please," she murmured. We need a place to stay." And there it was, the punchline to a joke I had been hearing my entire life. I should have slammed the door in their faces. I should have laughed, or spat out every cruel word I had swallowed over the years, every bitter reminder of the times I had begged for help and been met with nothing but indifference. But instead I tilted my head, feigning curiosity. "Oh? What happened to Darren's second house?" I took pleasure in the way they flinched. My father clenched his jaw. My mother's gaze dropped to the floor. They both knew I hadn't forgotten. Darren isn't helping," my father admitted, and there was something almost pained in his voice, as if saying it out loud made it real. "We asked, and he said no." I let out a slow breath, savoring the moment. The golden child, the one they had sacrificed me for, the one who had received everything I was denied. He had turned his back on them, and now I was their last hope. "Let me get this straight," I said, my voice smooth as glass. "When I was on the street, when I was barely scraping by, you told me to figure it out. But now that you're the ones with nowhere to go, I'm supposed to open my doors to you?" My mother's hands trembled where they clutched her purse. We made mistakes," she whispered. I almost laughed. Mistakes. Such a soft word for what they did. "You did more than make mistakes," I said, my voice steady. "You abandoned me. And now, you have the audacity to come here and ask for my help?" "We didn't think things would turn out this way," my father muttered. "Of course you didn't," I shot back. Because you thought Darren would always be there to bail you out. You thought the son you actually gave a damn about would step in when you needed him. But guess what? He doesn't care about you. He never did. And now you're left with the one you spent a lifetime ignoring. My mother's eyes were glistening now. We're still your parents. I let out a hollow laugh. Were you my parents when I was sleeping in my car? Were you my parents when I begged for help and you told me to be stronger? Because from where I'm standing, all I see are two people who threw me away and are only remembering I exist now that it benefits them. My father exhaled sharply, his patience wearing thin. So that's it then? You'd really turn us away? I took a slow step forward, watching as they instinctively leaned back. You taught me everything I needed to know about survival, I said. You showed me that when someone is struggling, they have to figure it out themselves. That's what you told me, remember? So why don't you take your own advice? The silence between us was thick enough to suffocate. I watched them, waiting to see if there was even an ounce of genuine remorse beneath their desperation. But I knew better. Their regret wasn't for what they had done, it was for where they had ended up. I could have let them in. I could have made them suffer under my rules, forced them to earn every scrap of kindness I might have offered. But they didn't deserve that mercy. With one final glance, I stepped back and reached for the door. You can figure it out, I said, echoing the words they had once thrown at me like a death sentence. And then, without another word, I shut the door in their faces. The silence on the other side of the door stretched long after I shut it. I could feel them standing there, shifting in place, whispering to each other in frantic tones, as if by some miracle I would open it again and welcome them inside with open arms. As if I could forget years of neglect, of cold indifference, of being told I wasn't their problem. But I didn't open it. I stood there, one hand still gripping the handle, my breath slow and even, my heartbeat steady. For years I had imagined what this moment would feel like, if I would gloat, if I would be overwhelmed by some final righteous anger that would spill out in a bitter tirade. But I felt none of those things. No joy, no fury, just relief. They weren't my problem anymore. And yet, even as I walked away from the door, something gnawed at the edges of my thoughts. A deep, lingering instinct that warned me this wasn't over. My parents were nothing if not persistent when it came to getting what they wanted. They had always been that way. Ruthless in their ability to manipulate, relentless in their pursuit of what suited them. They hadn't come here just to take no for an answer. I poured myself a nice strong coffee. I should have known better than to assume this would be easy. Then, the phone rang. I exhaled through my nose, already knowing who it would be. The name flashed on the screen. Darren. I let it ring. I let it ring until it stopped, and then I watched as the voicemail notification popped up. A few seconds later, the phone buzzed again, a text this time. Pick up. I ignored it, then another. I know they came to you. We need to talk. I stared at the screen, my jaw tightening. We? Since when had Darren and I ever been a we? The audacity was almost amusing. I hadn't heard from him in years, hadn't received so much as a check-in, a half-hearted apology, not even a holiday card. But now, when the pillars of his perfect little world had finally crumbled, here he was. I wasn't in the mood for this, but something in me, something bitter and tired, wanted to hear what he had to say. With a sigh, I grabbed my phone, swiped the call, and put it to my ear. The silence on the other end was brief, but loaded. Then Darren's voice came through, sounding older than I remembered, wearier, less sure of himself. You're an asshole, he said. I laughed, a short, humorless sound. Hello to you too, brother. You really turned them away? I did. A sharp exhale, a noise of frustration. Oh God, do you even know what they're going through right now? Do you? I countered. Because from what I heard, they went to you first, and yet somehow here we are. So tell me, Darren, why is it that you're not the one helping them? Why are they here, begging me for a place to stay? Silence. That told me everything I needed to know. I leaned back against the counter, drumming my fingers against the glass in my hand. That's what I thought. Darren cleared his throat, his voice a little tighter now. It's complicated. It always is with you. He ignored the jab. They lost everything, okay? Dad made some bad investments, trusted the wrong people. They remortgaged the house, used the extra money to help me out when I was struggling a couple years ago. And then things spiraled. They took out loans. The market turned against them. And now the bank took the house. They have nowhere to go. I rolled the glass between my fingers, unimpressed. So let me get this straight. When I was struggling, I got told to figure it out. But when you were struggling, they threw everything they had at you? Is that what you're telling me? He hesitated. That was enough of an answer. I clicked my tongue. And here I thought you were the golden child. Darren let out a frustrated sigh. I didn't ask them to do it. I didn't know how bad things had gotten. If I had, You what? I cut in. You would have stopped them? We both know that's a lie. You never said no to their money, Darren. You never stopped to think about where it came from or what it cost someone else. Silence again. This time, heavier. I pushed off the counter, pacing toward the living room. Let me guess. Now that they're broke, you've realized just how much they were propping you up. You don't actually give a damn about them. You're just pissed that the bank of Mom and Dad is officially bankrupt. That's not true, he said, but his voice wavered. I almost felt sorry for him. Almost. But then I remembered what it felt like to be alone, to be hungry, to be cold, to sleep in places no human being should have to sleep. I remembered calling them, just once, swallowing my pride long enough to ask for help, and being met with a casual, detached dismissal. You're an adult now. You need to figure it out. And now it was their turn. I let out a slow breath. They made their choice, Darren. You did too. Now you all get to live with it. Darren's voice sharpened. You're really going to let them be homeless? I let the question sit between us, considering it. Would I? Could I? I had every right to. It would be justice, wouldn't it? To let them know what it felt like to be discarded, to be told you weren't worth saving. And yet, I had spent years working toward this moment, toward proving that I didn't need them, that I had built something on my own. But deep down, I knew that this wasn't just about them. This was about me, about what kind of person I wanted to be. I ran a hand through my hair, exhaling. I'll think about it, I said finally. Darren sounded surprised. You will? Don't push it, I warned. I'm not making any promises. Right, yeah, okay. A pause, then quieter. Thanks. I didn't respond. I just hung up. The night stretched long after I ended the call with Darren. I stared at my phone, watching the screen dim, my reflection staring back at me in the glass. There was something unfamiliar in my own face, something hardened, something that had taken root in all those years of survival. I had won. If this were a game, I had beaten them at it. The people who abandoned me were now at my mercy, stripped of their wealth, their security, the golden sun who had drained them dry. They had spent their entire lives picking favorites, and in the end, they had backed the wrong horse. And yet, I felt no triumph, just exhaustion. I ran a hand over my face, sighing. It was almost laughable. Years ago, I would have begged for this moment, to see my parents brought low, to see Darren scrambling to finally be the one in control. I used to imagine what I would say, what I would do, how I would make them suffer the way I had suffered. But now that the power was mine, the victory tasted hollow. I poured myself another strong coffee. The city was quiet, the streetlights casting long shadows across the pavement. I wondered if my parents were still out there standing on my doorstep, hoping I'd change my mind, or if they had finally realized there was no home for them here. I took a slow sip, closing my eyes. This was my decision to make, and I was going to make it on my own terms. Morning came with a weight in my chest that I couldn't shake. Sleep had been restless, dreamless, the kind that left me feeling drained rather than refreshed. But I was awake now, and I had things to do. By the time I checked my phone, there were more messages. Darren had sent a few, short and to the point. Mom and Dad are staying in a motel. They don't have much left. They're waiting for you to call. Don't make them beg. I scoffed at that last one. Don't make them beg. That was rich coming from him. I had begged, I had pleaded, and they had let me rot. But still I got dressed. Still I grabbed my keys. Still I got in my car and drove. The motel Darren had mentioned wasn't far, one of those rundown, pay-by-the-week places with flickering neon signs and a parking lot full of cars that looked like they hadn't moved in years. I pulled in, shutting off the engine, my hands tightening on the wheel for a brief moment before I finally stepped out. I spotted them immediately. My mother sat on the curb, her hands folded in her lap, her hair grayer than I remembered. My father stood beside her, leaning against a rusted car, his face lined with exhaustion. Neither of them noticed me at first. They just sat there, staring at nothing, looking smaller than I had ever seen them. For a moment, I just watched. This was what rock bottom looked like. Then finally I stepped forward. My mother looked up first, her breath catching. "Oh, thank God." "Don't." I held up a hand, stopping her mid-sentence. "I'm not here to be your savior." My father straightened, his gaze wary. "Then why are you here?" I exhaled slowly, choosing my words carefully. "Because I'm deciding what happens next." They both went silent. "Good." I crossed my arms, my voice steady. "Let's get one thing straight. You don't deserve my help. You don't deserve a damn thing from me. And if I were the person you raised me to be, I'd walk away right now and let you suffer." My mother flinched. My father clenched his jaw. Neither of them spoke. "But I'm not that person," I continued. "I never was. I survived because I refused to become like you." I let the words settle, then exhaled. "So, here's what's going to happen. I have a rental property. It's not much, but it's livable. You can stay there. But there will be conditions." Their eyes widened, disbelief flickering between them. "What kind of conditions?" my father asked warily. I stared him down, my voice cold. "First, you pay rent. Not market price, but enough to cover the basics. Second, you get jobs. I don't care what kind. Fast food, retail, janitorial work. Figure it out. Third, this is temporary. You have 6 months. After that, you're on your own. No exceptions." My mother swallowed. "That's..." She hesitated. "That's fair." I nodded. "Damn right it is." They exchanged a look. I saw the unspoken conversation pass between them, the realization that they had no other options, that this was the best offer they would get. Finally, my father exhaled, nodding. "All right." I pulled the keys from my pocket, holding them up. "Then take them before I change my mind." My mother reached out first, her hands trembling slightly as she took the keys from my palm. She looked up at me, her lips parting as if she wanted to say something. Maybe an apology, maybe an attempt at mending something long since broken. I didn't give her the chance. "Don't expect this to fix anything," I said, my voice quieter now, but firm. "We're not a family. We never were. You made sure of that." Tears welled in her eyes, but I didn't care. I turned without another word, walking back to my car, feeling the weight lift from my shoulders with every step. This was my final act of mercy,